Welcome to Two Deep, Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. I'm your host, Pete B, and we are coming to you just after the Hokies lost in the ACC tournament. We're going to cover that, but first, I need a cheers from Sam, and then I'll introduce some of our guests we got here tonight.
Yeah, my cheers. It's to March Madness. It is one of the, 3-week spans on the calendar that every sports fan looks for. And it's here, Conference Championship Week. Awesome mid-majors going on. Obviously, the ACC tournament going on as well and the other big conferences, but just an awesome 3-week stretch of college basketball. So cheers, fellas.
Cheers. And we've got a couple friends with us tonight. We've got Ed Williams, who's going to help us recap the basketball game, and my buddy Brian, who's been on the podcast a couple different times before, is going to help us talk basketball, and then he's going to, more importantly, help us talk about the wrestling team who just won the ACC tournament. Welcome, fellas.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. All right, so like I said, we're going to get to the basketball in 1 second. We'll do wrestling, and at the end, Sam will fill us in on some baseball. Some good things happened today, and of course, softball as well to close it out. Not too much football stuff. I don't think I have virtually anything to talk about with regard to the football team for the first time in 8 months.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right, let's get to the men. They finished the season 13-18, 8-12 in the ACC, and they lost to Clemson to close out the regular season. And similar to the UNC game, not too much to speak of after that one. It wasn't so good. So we go to the tournament. We finish as the 10 seed, and we play Cal tooth and nail for about 45 minutes. We end up losing in double overtime, 82-73. The first half wasn't a great shooting display from either team, but for us, it was on the outside. We could not get a three to go in, Ed, and that continued into the second half and even into overtime.
They weren't much worse. It was kind of like, does anyone want to win this game down the stretch there? Like, we couldn't make anything. They were missing free throws. They're missing layups. I mean, they didn't score for the final 3 minutes regulation until they made a free throw. Both teams shot the ball horribly. Transparently, both not very good teams. Like, even if we win tonight, you win in double overtime, you're playing tomorrow against a rested Stanford team who you lost to earlier in the year. Would have loved to come out of that with a win just to feel a little bit better about things. But overall, it's just not great basketball teams. And they had a guy capable of scoring 29, and we don't really have that. So when the going got tough late, I kind of wish we would have leaned on Elijah Poteet a little more. I was surprised to see he only took 6 shots. I always feel like he can be pretty effective if he catches the ball in an advantageous position. But on the other side, they completely leaned on Stojakovic every chance they got, and he led them to victory in the double overtime period. So bummer, but all in all, can't be too upset.
I would say in the second half, they were kind of keeping us 3 to 4 points down. And then in typical Mike Young team fashion, we did find a way to get into the game at the end. And Rechsteiner hits that 3, and we go up by 1. And it looked like we were gonna seal the game. We had the ball with 8.8 left, and Brian, we couldn't get it in bounds. Like, this is something. It's got to been frustrating for you. I know you watch just about every game. At the end of games, these like critical situations, we can't seem to either get a shot up or execute the play properly.
Yeah, man. I mean, they inbound it, just throw it up in the air, gets deflected. Looks like our guy got fouled. Then they score off that. They have another chance. They do the same thing, get down to the last possession, I think in the first overtime, and they throw it out of bounds. It's just, you got to throw a shot up there, man. And it's been a disappointing season. Hard to get invested for me with who they have on the court, but I'm hoping some of them stick around and we can at least recognize some of their faces for next year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And I think Sam said it during the second overtime. It's like, I just want this season to be over.
Yeah, it feels like this coaching staff is like ready for the offseason. I don't think I mean that in like a bad way, but I mean, Mike Young's comments were not sugarcoating it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the comment after the game, are you talking about I'm not doing that again or something?
That's one of them. Sure. Yeah.
He was
He
as
said it was something to the degree of like, I'm not going through this again next year.
Yeah.
Like I need to go to the portal more or something like that.
Yeah.
that
Well,
was
Hokies
how
go
the
to the
tweet was framed, but that was not the actual quote. David did tweet the actual quote.
Okay.
The question was, when you said you want to get more talented as far as the turnover ratio, is that something that can be fixed in the portal? And he said, it better be. I'm not living through that again. So I think that wasn't, I think that I'm not living through it again is probably in response to, I ain't trying to build a roster with those resources again. So, I think that him being back next year, like he probably, if they were to say you have the same budget again, he probably would have retired. Based on that comment, is kind of how I've read that, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right on. And maybe just with respect to turnovers, because we had 18 in this game. Now that was in 50 minutes of play, but it was still a high number. We were good on turnovers in the first half and had throughout the season gotten better, but it was a problem. And they said it on the broadcast 100 times how we've been bad with turnovers. So maybe it's multiple things that he was referring to with that. I didn't take it as like, oh, I'm going to change my mind tomorrow and not come back and pull a Tony Bennett.
No.
I felt like he just was saying like, it was more or less, it was a young team. We made a lot of mistakes and I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah. Virginia Tech basketball had the knack this year for like, you would look at the stat line or listen to the broadcast. Like Virginia Tech is 2 of 15 from 3. They have 18 turnovers and have committed 17 team fouls. Hokies trail by 4 at the under 8 timeout. And you're like, how in the world are these games close? They're playing terrible. And I'm kind of caught between, obviously Mike Young's a phenomenal basketball coach and they have a great staff in terms of teaching. And I think, Ed, you've said it multiple times, like the fact that they finished with 8 ACC wins and were competitive in a vast majority of ACC games this year is a testament to that staff. Something didn't hold with this group. And you see it with like these weird turnovers, end of game issues. It just like, it didn't work this year. And that sometimes happens. And I feel like a fresh start with a couple of guys, you come back, you really like Ben Hammond. Toby Lawal is a difference maker athletically. See what you can get out of Shoot, see what you can get out of Rex Steiner, see what you can get out of Young.
Johnson.
Yeah. You got guys to build on, but you do, I think, need some fresh faces and some, starting next year 0-0, I think will feel really good, if that makes any sense.
It was tough to watch Jaden Young have such a poor game after some of the performances he's had this year. And we know it's what he needs to change about his game is being all or nothing, because he'll score 26 or 27 in a game like he did. And then he'll be 0 of 11 from 3 in this one. And I'll give Rex Steiner credit because he hit 2 really big threes. It wasn't going in for him so good either. We were 3 of 25 from beyond the arc in the game.
He had all 3.
But he hit all 3. And one was huge at the end of regulation, and one was pretty big in overtime. And so he had 19, but only 1 assist. The ball did not move in this game. Like we had virtually no assists as a team. And I love what Toby did. At one point, he kind of got a little hot later in the game. Poteet had a solid game and had a huge back-to-back plays. I think it was at the end of regulation, Ed, where he had the defense and then instantly went around and hit the baby hook on offense. It was a great back-to-back play for him.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, looking forward to next year, all the guys Sam mentioned that you want to try to keep, Johnson, Lawal, Shoot. Those are the first 3 for me that I would really like to have back next year. But, what you're not bringing back is a center and a point guard. Point guard has a huge question mark next to it, in my opinion. You saw spurts where Brandon Recksteiner was really good. You saw spurts where Ben Hammond was really good. But then other times where it was 15 minutes, 4 turnovers, 3 fouls, 4 points, Ben Hammond. So, yes, there are flashes, but there's no consistency there from either guy night in and night out. And then center position, Melijah's gone. The only one on the roster is Pat Wessler. He only played 8 minutes tonight. he at times has actually been a positive player for the Hokies, and I think
later in the season for sure. Yeah,
I think this can be said for everyone on the roster. There's a number that you could put on the table for all these guys where it's acceptable to bring that person back. Now, are you going to draw the line in the sand, and what does that look like for, Jaden Young? What does that look like for Patrick Wessler and their shooters they might have from other schools? But you have a giant question mark at center and a giant question mark at point guard heading into the transfer portal window. And unfortunately, based on history, those are the two most expensive positions to solve. So how they're going to go about that, we'll find out in pretty short order here. But they do have some good wings, and they do have a center coming in Christian Gerdick, who I think can step in and play 10 to 12 minutes a night right away.
Where was Jaden Shoot today? Like I'm so confused as to what happened with him today because he was just invisible.
I mean, he played 20 minutes. Jaden Young played 45.
I guess that's part of it. I mean, he had 2 fouls early, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
I think I'm wondering if Shoot's still not fully back from his illness. Apparently, he was like extremely sick for like 10 days. And I'm wondering if that just hasn't shaken and he's not fully his strength's not back yet. And what's unfortunate about Jaden Young's stat line tonight is I thought he played a really good game. I thought he was really good on defense, and I thought the shots he took were good looks. Like
there was a lot of open looks.
Like he wasn't jacking them up. Like we've seen Jaden Young at time, like heat check himself on like for no good reason. He wasn't really doing that tonight. He was taking good looks off of design sets, and just nothing was falling. And for him to go 0-11 off of the quality of looks he got tonight was pretty shocking.
So Brian, you're looking at the team and the roster. For next year, you can bring one guy back, and let's say 2 because I think the first one's obvious. Who do you want to bring back on this roster?
Let them all go. Give the NIL money to the wrestling team. Let's win a national championship.
You're done with it.
I mean, I've been locked into wrestling for the past 5 weeks. I forgot that we were playing. I forgot we were playing today.
Oh, did you really? Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
It was
that's unusual for you, man.
55.
You're usually watching like just about everything Hokies, but you have been. I mean, Brian was texting me all day Sunday, meaning he's watching on like ESPN Plus to watch the Mats at 10 a.m. So he was definitely paying attention to that, and that is why he's here. But going back a long ways, as Brian and I do, when Greenberg was making those runs, like every Saturday, we were out watching the game together. And those,
and it's.
I miss that being competitive into March.
And we had the same players for 4 years. I wasn't invested this year with the guys. I should have been more. I hope they come back and they're committed to tech.
Don't beat yourself up, man. You represent a big section of the fan base that if the team has more familiar faces and more promise, you will tune in.
Yeah. And not even if they have a great year, just that I can, recognize what we're doing. The turnovers, to be honest, I didn't watch much of the second overtime after we went down 4.
It was 6 quick in the second overtime, and we had such a hard time scoring. You play for 50 minutes. We only had 73 points, and the last few were, there were so many stoppages. It wasn't a great offensive day. I'll ask you, Sam. You can bring 2 guys back on this roster. Who do you want the most?
Ben Hammond. I think you're definitely bringing him back. And then, that second spot, Tyler Johnson.
What about Toby? I thought Toby was one.
Toby. I mean, yeah, but he has 1 year left of eligibility, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everyone only has
there's
1
a
year
lot of
that they could be on the team.
I know, but you gotta that's why I kind of said I don't know after Ben Hammond. I think this team, it is literally like day 1 of 2-a-days in JV football. Like it is ground zero for everybody. When you go into next year, I think like everybody's spot is up for grab. Anybody in the portal is up for grab. Like we've talked with football a lot this offseason, like, oh, they need to be strategic. They need a safety who plays this technique. They need a wide receiver who can play in the slot, whatever. I think for basketball, you're like, can the dude hoop? Yeah. Cool. Okay, bring him in. Because
that's
this team just
what
needs,
Brian said.
They need like Mike Young said it, like they need talent and they need guys. You need to get guys in the building. I think that was one of the issues happened this offseason with the transfer portal. They went out and got guys, but a few guys didn't make it to campus. And when that happens, like you can't help the team if you're not on campus. And if anything, it really hurt your other recruiting efforts that you have with other guys and those other relationships. So again, you just like, you need bodies, you need talent, you need a fresh start. I think Ben Hammond has like special twitch athleticism to him. Tyler Johnson just is a gamer. And I think that's exactly what this team needs. And Mike Young has historically done very well with players who play like that. So I'm excited for a fresh start for this program. And as Ed has said multiple times, a few extra pennies in the piggy bank.
Yeah. And Ed, I'll ask you last. And I think I have an idea of who you would say, but who you bring back? You got two choices.
I think just take Toby out of it, and then I'll talk about him in a second. But I would keep Johnson and Hammond. I think they're both plus defenders. They're both true freshmen. I think they're both plus defenders, and you saw at times, their offensive game flash a little bit here and there. Now, can they take the next step on that consistency? Actually, Johnson was surprisingly good shooting the three ball this year. It wasn't something people talked about. He didn't take a lot of them, but when he did, he shot a decent clip and, always has a knack on the offensive glass and defensive glass and just plays really good defense. I thought he did a good job tonight on Stojakovic, and then Hammond runs the show at a high level, plays really good defense. The guys he guarded this year, Marcus Burton, and then the next night he's got RJ Davis, and then the next night he's got JJ Starling. It was pretty crazy
Miller,
this year.
Was that one of them?
Yeah, the list goes on. So his defensive ability and ability to run the offense. Now tonight was not a good night, but he does seem to have maybe a higher ceiling and higher floor than Brandon Rechsteiner. So I think you go with the two true freshmen, and you try to build around that. Now the Toby thing is a different animal. He's clearly priority one. Going into the portal, but that's a different level of financial commitment you're probably going to have to make there. And the question then becomes, is Toby Lawal a number one option on an NCAA tournament team? If you think he is, you pay what you need to pay to keep that guy. If you don't think he is, you have to draw that line in the sand and figure out, okay, if he's going to cost X, but we also need to go get a true number one, or even, depending on what level team it is, you might need a 1 and a 2, and Toby's your 3 option. You might have to make a tough decision there at some point in time, because yes, the money is better. That is not to say that the money is Kentucky and Kansas and Duke.
And I think it depends on the style.
They could go pay a Toby Lawal. They could go pay a Toby Lawal what we would pay him to be a number 1. They could pay him to be a number 3. So that, then there's conversations to be had there. I think we'll be all right. I think he really likes JD Byers. I think he really likes Coach Young. I think he likes Virginia Tech. He has a chance on this roster to be showcased in a way that he would probably be buried elsewhere. And he's got one more year of eligibility to do that showcasing in. But are you going to get Toby Lawal as your second option, a guy who can score you 14 a night with 9 rebounds and a couple blocks? Then yeah, absolutely. But you have to keep in mind what we have to pay a number 1, other teams can pay a number 3. Yeah. And that'll be interesting to see what takes place there.
There's a couple things at play in terms of, because he likes the coaching staff and because they've already developed him a little bit, do we get a hometown discount? Potentially. If he could go seek money somewhere else, that would be $200,000 more. Would he stay, for $200,000 less at Tech? The other thing is roster construction for Coach Young. Depending on who else he brings in, and I have this position, I have this position. How do I want to run this team? All right, we don't need Toby because of whoever else we got. Like, it really just depends. But I completely agree that he should be number 1 priority, of course, to a point, because you can't blow your budget on one guy when you're Virginia Tech. And so I think he has so much more room to grow. I think he could be an 18 points a night guy, maybe more, because they said it on the broadcast again. He's only played basketball for a very short period of time. His growth we don't know how high he can go, his upside.
Yeah.
And so I'm rooting for Toby to be on the team along with Ben Hammond. If I had two, those were the two. But Tyler Johnson, being a true freshman and being as big and as effective as he was this year, of course I want Tyler Johnson back. I love that guy.
He physically looks the part.
Mhm.
And I don't think Virginia Tech, I mean, kind of historically, but especially under Mike Young, I think there's been this, you've looked on the court sometimes, you'd be like, oof, we got a bunch of 3-point shooters out there. Like you don't have the guys who can play the physical game. Tyler Johnson can. And I think that's a guy who, you know, he elevates your team to a level that is going to be really hard to find in the portal.
Mhm.
And the fact if you can get him in the system for a year, 2 years, 3 years after this, I think is honestly Virginia Tech's only real hope of competing at the top of the ACC in basketball. Is you're not going to keep every guy, but you need to keep 3 or 4 that you can build a core around. Like that's what worked with Hunter
They
Couture.
get better year over year under
Yep.
understanding Mike Young's system like that. It's like compounding interest. Like you got to keep it building on this team.
Yep.
And so let's cut off the men conversation there quickly. Ed, we saw the women lose to Georgia Tech in the tournament. That wasn't a great showing in the second half. First half was fine. It didn't go well in the second half, but you look back on the season, they finished 18-12, 9-9 in the conference. Your overall thoughts on the season Coach Duffy had with these girls?
Yeah, good year one. It's going to be interesting to see again transfer portal how things unfold there with all the girls, that particularly the ones that were recruited by Kenny. Like, you know, how loyal are they to this staff after seeing, you know, what Coach Duffy wants to do for a year. I think we'll do okay there. I think Karis Baker is 1A and probably 1B and probably 1C. I think you have to keep Karis Baker. Just a really good talent, really good person, great person to have in the locker room and to kind of lead the next wave of this women's basketball program. I'd love to keep Carly Wenzel. I'd love to keep Mackenzie Nelson. It's going to be really hard to replace Rose Michaud. She was really good this year for this team. And you saw when she was out, they had a hard time winning a couple games when she was out. But overall, I think this team was really close to being a lock for the NCAA tournament. They almost crept in anyway, but you know, the UVA lost, the Syracuse lost, the Stanford lost, and the Georgia Tech lost there at the end. Just too many 50-50 games that didn't go our way. And as a result, we're on the outside looking in, presuming for the NCAA tournament selection show.
Yeah, there was a couple of bids that got stolen over the weekend. That there was, after we lost, there was some kind of release or some bracketology that said, well, the Hokies still might get in if this and that. And then a couple of other teams ended up stealing bids. And
Richmond.
It looks like we're going to be out.
I think it was Richmond, right? Sam stole one from us.
Yeah, Richmond lost in the A-10 semifinals. They only scored like 50 points.
At the Horn to like St. Joe's. So
it's, you know, I first and foremost, like they did such a good job keeping this team at an NCAA tournament level for so long this season. I think they did towards the back half of the season. Like they had some bad losses, like the Syracuse loss, the Stanford loss wasn't great. You know, it's shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's kind of college basketball in a nutshell. At the same time, there is such a well-laid foundation there for talent and the way that they're recruiting and, you know, the way that Virginia Tech has been able to go out in the transfer portal in the women's game. You feel really good about what Coach Duffy has built in just 1 year in Blacksburg.
Yeah. And there's less roster attrition in women's basketball. Maybe at the very, very top of the sport, there's close to the same amount as the men, but overall it's far less. And I think that just has a lot to do with the amount of money at play. That's not to say that we don't all love women's basketball. It's the reality of it that we may be able to keep most of that team around, and they were very young and they have so much potential. So yeah, I'm excited about the future under Coach Duffy. We're going to get to wrestling in 1 second, but first I want to say that the 2D Hokies Under the Influence podcast is brought to you by Rhoback. Ed's got a Rhoback on. That's one of the VT Rhobacks, and they just dropped the exciting whites. You can grab them using code 2DEEPVT. Load up your cart. They got joggers. They got the Irish polos. They got tons of them. St. Patrick's Day is coming up this week. In fact, I'm drinking a St. Patrick's Day themed beer, which I will talk about in a second. But Roback has the best gear, and you can use code 2DEEPVT for 20% off your order. Roback Crave Activity. Ed, are you sticking around? You're going to bounce, right? Are you drinking anything?
Nope, drinking
All right.
water. I'm going to bounce and go watch. I think it's St. Mary's and Gonzaga are playing right now. So I'm going to go watch that while y'all talk wrestling, but I look forward to watching this one back once you post it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Ed.
See you, Ed.
All right, boys. We'll do the beer break after wrestling. Let's get to Brian's thoughts on the ACC championship. Like I said, he was locked in, and going into it, we had 4 number 1 seeds and 2 number 2 seeds of the 10 weight classes. And some of that, what we're going to do tonight is explain wrestling, hopefully in more of a layman's terms, because let's face it, Sam and I are still pretty much laymen, despite me watching a lot of wrestling over the last couple of years.
Yeah, people have tried to explain the scoring to me, and when it's all out on paper, I understand it, but when it's happening in real time, it looks so subjective to me. So I don't know what's going on, but I feel like we had a pretty good showing considering that we won by like 30 points, whatever 30 points means, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the team score, that's a beatdown. We haven't seen that in either direction between Tech and NC State for a while. NC State's, they're redshirting a lot of guys this season, which wrestling does a bunch. So they're going to have a pretty stacked roster this year. We got a lot of young guys coming in for next year as well, but it was a demolition of everybody in the field for the most part. The scoring's pretty tough to figure out. Just takedowns are a little controversial. You got to get their leg out of the way, and I'll talk about some of the funk that we saw yesterday.
It's a leg out of the way, hips behind hips, things like that. The escapes are easy for me to figure out, but like when it comes to the takedowns, because even the referees had a hard time figuring out certain takedowns. And so 5 of these 10 championship matches went to overtime or sudden victory or beyond. And so it was very competitive. I think there was only one of the 10 that was more than a 4-point margin. And so a really good, like we could have lost several of these matches. I mean, it was a beatdown on the scoreboard, but the matches individually were all pretty tight, even Caleb's match.
Yeah, they're all real close. Some of the close matches, especially with Caleb and Ventresca, where it's 1-1 going into overtime, they were in pretty good control for a lot of the match. Caleb was never really challenged by a very good UNC wrestler ranked 6th in the country. He just dominated that entire match. He had one shot that he put himself in an awkward position. He recovered real fast, but he is so aggressive on his feet. He gets off the bottom. He's tough on top. He looked real good. He's going to be the number 1 seed. We had some good fortune in the Big Ten championships where the lowest of the 3 seeds won the tournament. That was the Nebraska guy that Love it. Yes. The one Caleb beat in the semis of the national championship last year,
which was a great match.
It was. And we kind of lucked into that. He made a bad choice in the 3rd period, and Caleb wouldn't see him until the finals. That's the expectation for Caleb. He should breeze to the quarters. He stays aggressive. He wrestles like he did the past 2 months. He'll have a tough match, presumably against Parco, Iowa guy. He's real good. That would put him in the finals against either the Penn State guy or the Van Ness or Lovett. That's the goal.
And that's in 149. Weight 149.
That's at 149.
And I thought for the last round plus of the ACC championship match against McNeil, he looked like clearly the better wrestler. Now that didn't mean that he couldn't have lost it on a bad, shot or something at the end. But he was I don't know if he was playing possum in the beginning of the match, but like by the end of it, he clearly looked like the better wrestler, if you ask me.
There's a lot of hand fighting, a lot of shots to the head. He was wearing them out. McNeil didn't do anything. He was trying to take it to overtime the way he did and try to get in on a reattack. That was one of the most locked in, and Henson's been locked in for a lot of matches. He looked great, obviously, last year in the NC2As, but he's looked very good this year. He's looking better, making all the right choices, and he is just the best at reattacks I think I've seen of any Tech wrestler since I've been watching for a long time. So that 149 weight class went about as good as you could expect, obviously.
And I feel like it's one of the few where number one seed is no dispute. And you've already said that, but there are some other weight classes where it's not so clear, especially if you get down into 2 and 3. Like I think it's 141 where like there's no clear favorite. But let's talk about Ventresca quick at 125, because he was injured last year. 2 years ago, I think he was an All-American, correct?
Yes, he was.
And so then he comes back this year, and especially in the latter half of the year, he's been a beast. And he goes up against Robinson. And tell us about like that takedown at the end. It happened real fast. Then NC State challenges it. They win the challenge, but then we challenge it back. But from what I understood, the challenges were about different things. Like NC State's was about whether it was a takedown, and then ours was whether the ref blew the whistle too early. Is that what happened there?
What happened was we got the takedown, Ventresca, to win it. They stopped it. And NC State, they throw the brick, and the refs go to NC State coach and say, we're going to review this. This isn't going to go. We'll do a self-review. They review it, and at that point, it's just the two refs that are looking at the video. They overturn it based on what they see, which gives the Tech coaches a chance to throw the brick, and that's what Freyer did. He threw it, and then at that point, it goes to an independent review, and it was by far a takedown. He had control. The only thing that they were looking at was if there was enough time. They want to have some type of time delay, just reaction time to see if he can get out of it. And
it's like the football move.
Right,
like, did he actually get it down? Were his hips, engaged or not engaged, or however you term it, like flipped the right way?
Right.
And to me, and I know in real time it's super fast, but I agree with you. It looked like he had that advantage for the split second that he needed it.
Of all the other calls, that seemed to be the most clear cut. Ventresca beat Robinson in the same situation at the duel, kind of shoved off him at the end of the match, and Robinson got pissed and they were getting into it. So I was excited to watch how they reacted and wrestled. And Robinson has upset a lot of good wrestlers. Ventresca is going to get most likely the 3 seed in nationals, which is going to be really beneficial. He avoids a lot of landmines up until the semis. I'm sorry, the quarterfinals. He has a tough road, though. 125 is tricky with they're all real close in the top 8 at 125.
And for Ventresca, he is our second highest ranked wrestler on a national scale. If you go to Intermat or Flow or wherever, he's like 2 and 3 right now. And in fact, I do have a graphic I'll show in a second, but do you believe that he can win the Natty at 125? Or like, and you just talked about the favorable road. Like, is it a possibility?
Ventresca and Caleb, you want them to get into the semis. That's the goal. Caleb, you want to go to the finals, obviously, is the one seed and win it. Ventresca, he gets into the semis. Let's see what happens. He would have Matt Ramos most likely as the number 2 seed in the semis. And he beat him earlier in the year pretty decisively. The goal is to put as many wrestlers, at least the top, McDongle, Ventresca, Henson, potentially Hippolito. You want to get them into the semis. That's the goal for them. And then the Sam Latonas, Andy Smith, Jimmy Mullen. You like to All-American is a good goal. Stretch goal, obviously, is the semis. But we're looking at potentially 6, 7 All-Americans, and then Mac Church and
Stewart.
I think that and Wolak.
Wolak, yeah.
You like to see him get 2 wins. Most of the time I've spent the past 6 hours has been seeing if TJ Stewart was going to get in. He didn't qualify automatically, and they just announced the at-large selections, and he was not part of that selection, which is a bummer. He All-American last year. He's been hurt this year. I wish they would have taken more of that into consideration when they looked at those at-large selections. He's had a rough year, and I feel bad for him. He wrestled pretty tough this weekend. He
came in 4th, right?
He did, and top 3 auto qualified at 184. They use RPI, believe it or not, in wrestling to determine how many auto qualifications go out based on common opponent. They have a point system. It's
interesting. I was wondering how they did that. And it's like from the ACC, they give us a certain amount of bids per weight.
Correct. Based on their RPI and coaches' rankings. And that was the 4 guys in the ACC at 184 are all in the top 25 in rankings. To only give 3 auto bids, I think
I'll show
was
that again.
a disservice.
Because Stewart, you can see him here. He's 22 in intermat and then 27 in flow. And that was after coming in 4th in the ACC. So it seemed like he was on that borderline of, warranting inclusion in the at-large. But we did get 9 guys into the NCAAs, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. At 133, Connor McGonigal wins the conference. He takes out O'Reilly, and O'Reilly was a 2-time defending champ in the ACC. So that is a huge
I'm glad he's gone. O'Reilly's been freaking a pain in Tech's backside for years, and he is cutting a ton of weight to go 133, and he looks like he's like 150 some pounds by the time he gets to the finals. And McDonigal, he had the number 5 seed Knox in the semis and beat him 1-0, and then he beat O'Reilly 5-2 on some really he puts himself in danger. He's not like Ventresca and Henson where it's close, but they see him in control. People get in on his legs and ready to score, and he does some funk move where he just dives at a leg and spins around, and he ends up on top. He's won so many of those matches this year. He's the transfer, I think, from Lehigh. I think he came from Lehigh.
He's a transfer. Yep.
He's got a lot of real skill and mat awareness and abilities to find himself in the right position. I'm excited to see how he's going to do.
And he's a highly ranked guy too. I mean, in terms of, he's the 3rd highest ranked guy on the team in terms of a national scale at his weight. And so big win for him. And one of our 4 champions. So let's go to 141. Latona was the 1 seed. He ends up going down to Cedeno, who Cedeno kind of had I know he was the 2, but it wasn't expected for him to win this. And Latona is one of my favorite guys to watch, and he just didn't seem to have it in this match.
He is hot and cold. He can get in on people's legs, and he can't finish the takedown. And I think he gets so worn out by trying to either get off a bottom or finish these shots. He's been a mainstay for us for years, and he is always going to give you a 10 to 15 ranked type performance. He's All-American, I think, maybe once, but possibly twice. And he had a lapse, and he gave up 3 points against Cedeno. And after he missed on an opportunity on a takedown, I feel like he didn't have much left in his tank, but I'm excited to see him bounce back. Yeah, some of the other wrestlers have been more calculated with energy levels, and Latona he's like the Bryce Endonian of last year, where it's like, I'm up and I'm just going to throw whoever I can try to throw. And a lot of times sometimes it's not going to work. but I'm leaving it all out there. And
he's
and
like a
because
high motor guy who then he just goes till it's out of gas,
right,
and he
he
doesn't
is.
actually like there's no load management with with Latona.
No, there isn't, and he's great at getting to the high C single leg shot, and it's I really hope he has a big last NCAA tournament and gets to All-American status. That'd be awesome for
Let's
him.
talk about Hippolito, because this guy at
Yes.
157 comes in and beats Scott, who I think was also a 2-time defending ACC
Yeah.
champ. They said on the broadcast it was his best match of the year.
He started off the season in the Andonian way of just letting it all out. He gets worn out and people come back. He is the most exciting wrestler, in my opinion, to watch on the Tech team. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, doesn't have a lot of wrestling experience. His growth over this season's been awesome. He's been more patient, and he is just dominating. I think he's cutting a lot to get to 157. I'm not sure, but it looks like he has a lot left in the tank, and he has some real upper body moves that are great to see. And the wrestlers his opponents are anxious to get up top with him out of fear getting thrown through the mat. So he's another guy. I think he's going to be, by the time he's a senior, I would expect him to be at least in the semis of the NCAAs, if not the finals. He looks like he's getting better every match. And
Yeah,
Fryer has done a great job with him. It's just remarkable how he's progressed.
Speaking of Fryer, he just went on Dan's podcast, Tales from the Terror Dome, and did an interview. So if you're interested in some more wrestling content, check out Dan's show, because the interview with Jared Fryer was really good, one of our assistant coaches. But to finish the thought on Hippolito, he's very sound for being young in his technique, it seems, and played a lot of what I thought was like impressive defense. As much as that sounds odd for wrestling fans, I felt like he was really good at fending off certain moves and then executing when he needed to execute, if that makes sense to you.
It does. And when the wrestlers get up top with him and he starts doing whatever he's doing with their arms, they back off real fast. They want to get out of that and wrestle on their feet. He's got a good double leg. He's got that Jordan Burroughs double leg. He looks really, really good going into the tournament in a few weeks.
So we'll kind of move quickly here. Mac Church, third place in 165, but he was the 5th seed, so he overachieved a bit here. Your thoughts on Mac Church?
He had a big tournament. He won the first match, dropped one, came back to the bottom half and just wrestled real well. Really happy for him. He's a freshman too, and he looked really tough this tournament, and he wrestles well in tough matches. He's got some good technique. He
rises to the
guy.
occasion, you're saying.
He does. He's another guy that looks like he's improved. I don't know if he's oversized at 165. He might be wrestling a weight class up due to Hippolito being a freight train. So we'll see how he does. I'd like to see him get 2 wins in the tournament. That would be a good performance for him.
As for Wolak at 174, maybe a little disappointing. Although you look at his seed and you look where he finished ahead of his seed.
He did.
He kind of left you wanting a little bit more.
I mean, Wolak's, he was an All-American last year, and he transferred to Tech, and it looks like he's enjoying a lot of beers, being in his last year. He looks gassed. I mean, he's an ox. He's strong as an ox. He's got an inside trip. He got to the bottom half and wrestled well to qualify. He had a tough match against the number 4 in the country, Norman, beat him 8-5. That was a huge upset for us to get into the tournament. He would not have been in without that win. So I'm glad he'll get into the tournament, and 174 is pretty stacked. We'll have to see how that ends up, but he 2 wins for him would be good. He has the skill to go All-American. He's strong, like I said. And
what does it take to get All-American?
Top 8. Top 8.
Okay. At 197, Andy Smith finishes 3rd. Andy Smith, great guy. We like Andy Smith. He was the 3rd seed. He finishes 3rd. I'm not sure of his prospects in the tournament. Do you think he could win a few matches?
He got to the blood round last year, which is right outside. That's the last round before you make it to All-American. He had an impressive ACE or NCAA tournament. He overachieved. I think he's another. You get 2 wins out of him. Hopefully, make it to the get 2 rounds into the championship bracket, 2 wins, get to the quarters potentially, and then go from there. And a lot of the tournament is who do you get paired with on the back end after you lose, and some of it's pretty much guesswork based on upsets, and you can get a really tough seed to get into the All-American status. But he had a decent tournament. I think his ceiling is about 10th in the country. But he's a strong guy, and he's been a good representative for our wrestling team.
All right, and finally the heavyweights. Jimmy Mullen comes in second, and he was the 2 seed, but in that last match against Pitzer, who was kind of on a Cinderella run, he had a shot and he went for it in sudden victory, and then all of a sudden he lost. And so, like, did he botch that last shot? Was he just trying something? Was he gassed? Like, what happened at the end there?
Pitzer upset Trumbull. Trumbull's the NC State guy who was 4th in the country. He's been hurt the past few weeks. Mullen, he cruised to the finals, and then he's a really aggressive heavyweight wrestler. He's quick on his feet, and I don't know if he was just nervous and he just slowed down. He got that early. No, actually, he didn't get an early takedown. He got the early takedown in the semifinal match, and he just stopped wrestling. He slowed down. He couldn't finish a few shots, and that Pitzer guy, I just caught him on a good reattack on a not a great shot. I'm not worried about Mullen. I hope he shows some more aggression, goes back to some of the things he was doing. He just seemed like freshman in the finals got to him a little bit.
Yeah. So many of these guys are young and so good already. I mean, you're right. When you say he cruised to the finals, he had the fall in the first round and then 11-3 in the semis, I think it was. So he was cooking, and that's why the loss against Pitzer, who did end up winning most outstanding wrestler of the entire tournament, which we could debate, but
yes, we can.
He had a good tournament. Pitzer did.
Yes, he did.
All right. So finally, a couple questions for Brian as we're kind of closing out this wrestling thing. By the way, that was great. We went through all the weight classes, talked about everybody, 4 champs, 2 number 2s, and 2/3. Is that right? Yeah. So a total of 8 guys that qualified, and then we got Wolak who qualified as well. So it's 9 guys going to NCAAs, correct?
Yep. Which is there's I think one team that has 10. Cornell, Penn State has 9. Some other top tier teams have 9. So nine's that's a good number to try to eke into the top 5. I think a top 5 finish would be pretty impressive compared to some of the other teams that just have juggernauts of a team composition. So that's kind of what I would be hoping for.
So you talked a little bit about the guys that you like on this team, some of the things you like about them and whatnot. And you might have already said this. Who's your favorite to watch on this team of the 10 guys we talked about today? Who do you enjoy the most watching?
Well, McDongle is the most McGonagall, whatever.
McDongle.
Yeah. He is the most exciting because he always gets in these funky positions and figures out how to score. Ventresca is tactical. Caleb's just a beast. He's gonna get a ton of points. I hope he lets it fly once he gets further down into the championship rounds. It's hard not to root for Caleb as the top guy, seeing how good he is at everything. And Hippolito can just launch people. And that was everybody loved Andonian for that. He made all kinds of hype videos. People loved him. Hippolito's going in that direction just a little more. It's like Andonian just chilled a little bit, save some. Hippolito's doing that. And he's a freshman, and he's going to have 3 more years to watch turn into a real exciting wrestler. Hippolito and Connor, I won't say McDongle again.
Sure.
They're very exciting to watch.
The Brazilian, who apparently
Yeah.
Hippolito is friends with Davi, or at the very
Mhm.
least, Davi has shown up in the wrestling room, Sam, and done some sparring and hanging out.
Brazil, small place. So, of course they know each other. But that's
So-
pretty cool. I don't know if I would want, like, even if I was a collegiate wrestler, I've seen some of those videos. I don't think I want to get in a ring with Davi. I'm good.
Yeah, well, yeah, and his
I'm
father
good.
is MMA. For those that don't know, Victor Belfort is that what it is? Victor Belfort. He's a MMA fighter, is Davi's dad, and so I guess Davi has grown up fighting a little bit and can get in there and mess around with the guys. Sam, what's your favorite wrestler to watch on this team? Who have you enjoyed watching?
I mean, I like Henson because he wins. I think that's pretty cool. And, it's like a little old Hokie. Like, we don't have a lot of athletes that are like unquestioned at the top of their game. Right. And so to see somebody in orange maroon doing that is pretty cool. And we don't see that a lot. So if he could go back to back individual national champion, you start talking like Mount Rushmore stuff at that point. Like
Of
careers,
Virginia Tech history. Yeah.
Like
sure.
Collegiate careers don't really get better than that. So that's cool. But it was really nice to beat NC State. I have a lot of NC State friends and family and stuff like that. So really nice to beat NC State, not once, but twice. And like you said, like top 5, I think would be really cool. Winning a national title is unfortunately very, very tough in wrestling, it seems. And so, yeah, if this program just keep going what they're going, they continue to recruit, they continue to develop. And I think I saw Bill Roth tweeted something out where it was like, Virginia, since joining the ACC in 2004, Virginia Tech has been one of the best and winning ACC championships. And wrestling is kind of leading the charge in terms of success at the ACC level consistently.
What's cool about what happened on Sunday was we hadn't beat NC State for 6 straight seasons. They had won the ACC 6 straight years since 2018. So for all you like, oh, Tech's good at wrestling, this was unique to beat them. And they didn't even come in second. They came in third because of some of the beatdowns we put on them in the finals. So that was really nice to come in first, win the ACC tournament, not just a share of the regular season title, which we already had. And I guess the last thing I asked you who you're most excited about. I think we kind of went over that with Hippolito. We talked aggressive wrestlers with McGonigal. So yeah, I think we covered just about everything we needed to cover with wrestling. One thing I did want to talk about, Brian, and I guess this will be our football segment. You're the reason that I know Mason Baggett, and he is now a member of our strength staff. Have you talked to him, and how excited is he to be back in Blacksburg?
He is pumped up. He is so excited. He got they went to a new coaching staff. They named him the head strength coach at Nevada. They fired their coaches after a second year. He went back to Maryland, and the DMV, just great place to live. It can't get better than that. Kidding. And then he got picked up at
a lot of traffic.
Tech. Yes, he is excited. I obviously hope he stays there for a while, and that has a lot to do with the performance of Pry and the team with the new coordinators. But I'm excited to watch his videos now that he went to I was watching him before, but now he's at Tech, and you're going to see a lot of big squats from him and in his videos. That's his thing. He puts up like 685 on the squat rack, so he can lift it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Billy and I think Pat was on it too. Yeah, Billy and Pat both interviewed Jared Ferguson on their show last week and talked about the overhaul to the program and talked about Mason a little bit. And it's cool because Mason was there a long time ago with Jared, and now they're both back. And it seems like we're going to be getting back to some really hardcore stuff in the weight room. And it's exciting. And like I said, when we were freshmen, Brian introduced me. Brian was on my floor freshman year, and Mason, I think, was in the next dorm over or whatever.
In Behringer, yep.
Behringer. And so we all ended up hanging out a bunch, and you guys are still best buds from old Richmond days and whatnot. And I guess you and Mason were both wrestlers at one point.
Yeah, we wrestled together in high school.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Well, that's going to do it for wrestling. Let's take a beer break, and then let's talk some baseball. So, Sam, what are you drinking?
I am drinking. This is my last. I got a big Star Hill case like a month ago, and this is my last one. This is ironically the Last Leaf Maple Brown Ale, 6.1% alcohol. Really cool can with like the fox. I don't know if you can see it if you're watching on YouTube. Really awesome. And it's this beautiful, like it's exactly what it sounds like. It looks like maple syrup, like Vermont maple syrup is what it looks like. And it tastes great. It has that hint of maple, but it's not super sweet. A little bit of a like whiskey barrel age type vibe going on to it. Not that really strong bite, but a little bit of bite to it. Really good beer. It's a great sipping beer. I wouldn't pound 5 or 6 of them, but if you're gonna have 1 or 2, you're gonna have it in your flight. It's a really good one.
I love brown ales, and we're on the cusp of getting back to the IPAs and the fruit beers and stuff because I had a 70-degree day here in New Jersey today,
Yeah.
and it was awesome. And I got outside and it was great, but I do love a good brown ale, and that sounds delicious. I am drinking the Irish Cream Stout from Southern Tier. I saw this in the store in the can and this time of year, and it's got the leprechaun hat on the back with some foam on it. I had to buy it. It is like drinking a car bomb that's already mixed. That's exactly what it tastes like. The Irish Cream Stout from Southern Tier. And it's funny too, because there is some type of like milky nature to it, like because of that car bomb sense. And like part of me is like, does this smell like it's milk or does this smell like beer? Like it's got like kind of a funny smell. I like it. I'm not like over the moon about it, but it smells like and tastes like a car bomb that has already been mixed, and it's going down pretty easy in my Virginia Tech glass here. Brian, you're not drinking anything, right? Or are you having a beer? Oh, nice. What you got there?
Master Shredder from the Vale Hazy IPA.
Beautiful.
Had about 8 of these on Saturday watching Tech wrestling, and then went to Bourbons. It was an exciting night.
Oh my gosh, you slept good that night, I'm betting.
I did.
I do like the Master Shredder though. That's a good beer.
Yep.
Awesome, dude. All right, so baseball, Sam. They are 12-5. We had a game today.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about. It was a scary one at the end there.
Yeah, JMU is like they're not having a great year. I think they've lost 6 in a row now. They have good pitching, not a lot of hitting. Those teams can be scary because if they do get a few hits, you're in trouble. They always play Tech really tough. This is the first time Virginia Tech has swept JMU in quite some time. So really good to get a win there in Harrisonburg. They beat them in Blacksburg a few weeks ago. 5-4 win there. Tech had a tough time in the 9th inning last weekend against Georgia Tech, though a really good Georgia Tech team. Gave up a lead and lost in the 9th inning of game 1. Were able to hang on and win game 2 with, I think they hit like 3 homers in the game. And then we're tied 6-6 heading into the 9th in Sunday's rubber match. Gave up a few walks, gave up some runs, weren't able to get anything in the bottom half of the inning. So a really tough series that like every game felt very 50-50 and Tech just ended up on the wrong side of it for 2 of those games. But that's baseball and you move on. They did move on and got a road victory. I do think some good news reading, I guess like reading in between the lines on this one, that freshman pitcher Logan Eisenrich, who's been really good, hasn't pitched in a while though for the Hokies. I think he should be good to go this weekend, considering that we saw Grant Manning today in Harrisonburg. So I'm hoping that the Hokies will have all 3 starters this weekend as they travel to Raleigh to play NC State in a really, really good pitching staff
Yeah, that's a good
at
team.
NC State. So, but an NC State team that has trouble at the plate, who's lost to Liberty, they've lost to Richmond. So a winnable series for the Hokies, but a really tough one.
I think Liberty was giving someone a problem today in the ACC.
Yeah. Clemson ended up winning 6-4, but
Okay.
Liberty's a good team this year. Yep.
All right. So after wrestling, Brian, will you lock in on baseball? I know you're a big baseball fan. You're a Pirates guy, but will you watch Tech baseball?
Yeah. If it's on.
If it's on ACC Network, you will watch.
Yeah.
It's almost every game is going to be on either ACC Network or ESPN Plus.
Okay.
And so if you have ESPN Plus, you'll get every game and you'll get the home broadcast. And that means, so if you're watching Tech, you'll get Evan Hughes on the broadcast. It's friend of the program, Evan Hughes, phenomenal on the baseball broadcast, as is Giovanni Heater when he's on as well. So really awesome stuff. They're off to a good start. Pitching, look, they got to figure out that third starter. If they figure him out, pitching looks good. Hitting, some guys are getting hot. ACC is an absolute gauntlet, though.
Yes, it is.
So every weekend is tough, but the good side of that is don't have to worry about building a tournament resume. It'll build itself.
Very true. And in softball, we are 19-5, and we won the series against ranked number 23 UVA. So that was a big win. We took 2 out of 3 from them, and that's about it I have on softball. We'll get into that a little bit more. Do you have anything else, Sam?
No, if you want more on the Diamond Sports, we'll have weekly articles coming out on sonsofsaturday.com. We'll continue those throughout the year. So go there for coverage of softball and baseball, but softball off to a really good start.
Yeah, man. They
always
really
nice to beat UVA. Always nice.
So, Brian, are you heading to Philly? Because I know you have some in-laws in the Philadelphia area. Will you be heading up this weekend for
the championships are in 2 weekends, and I'm going to be in Philly this coming weekend, so I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to back.
I got you,
but we'll see. I might make a game time decision and venture up there. Tickets are not cheap.
No, they're not.
You're going to spend a couple $100 to get in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of sessions. Like it starts Thursday, goes to Saturday, and I think the last session's at nighttime on Saturday. My mom, we're throwing her a birthday party that weekend
at the wrestling championships.
Every
mom's dream.
My mom's actually wrestling.
I thought you were going to tell me she was going. Like she's a closet college wrestling fan.
She does not know it's happening. And so I will be missing that session, but I'm hoping to get to a couple other ones on Thursday and Friday and maybe Saturday morning. So we'll do that. But dude, thanks again for being here, Brian.
Yeah,
and thank you to Ed too. But dude, your coverage you're pro. That was excellent.
I love it. I'll teach you more about the scoring, Sam, next time.
I'll just when we tackle the other guy, that's a good thing. That's what I'm rooting for.
If you go, just yell 3 and get off the bottom. Those are the 2 things. And stalling. That's it. And you'll be
at the other team stalling. He's stalling.
If I do it in like a Southwest Virginia accent, does that give me any more credence when yelling at the ref? Because you can hear those. But I know, but you can hear those. By the way, like Tech wrestling fans do a great job of packing out Castle. It's really cool, and you can hear that like Appalachian drawl yelling at the ref through the mic, and it is beautiful. True. It is beautiful.
That's true, and I did find it interesting being in Philly. Jersey and Pennsylvania are such big wrestling states. Like maybe that's why tickets are so expensive. It's going to be well attended. Now, it's not to say when it was in Kansas City last year, it's not far from Iowa or Oklahoma. Like there's a lot of good wrestling in this country, but you look where our wrestlers come from, it is Pennsylvania and it's New Jersey. Like that's where most of the guys on the roster are from.
We're getting the number 4 guy in the country coming to us from New Jersey next year. He is a beast. And then Seidel from PA. Yeah.
He just won states last week, right?
Yep.
I think they just ended. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, all right, guys, that's going to do it for the show. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube to the Sons of Saturday YouTube channel, as well as Too Deep on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and also check out Billy and Pat's stuff over on their feed on those 2 apps. And until next time, go Hokies.
Go Hokies.
Go Hokies.